Jaden, I couldn't sleep the other night, so I was watching this documentary on like, Leonardo da Vinci or something like that. And it was just blowing my mind that like one dude is still remembered for everything he did, hundreds of years later. And so just bear with me for a second. Regardless of what you think of him, Elon Musk is going to be thought of that. And this guy is, in a way, a holy terror of a man, right? I mean, like he does a lot that just people are like, what the heck is wrong with this guy? But let's just sort of like separate the art from the artist for a second here, because what Elon Musk builds is nothing short of absolutely extra. I really think he's kind of like the Da Vinci of our time. And when you think about the fact that he like spun up Grok in what was it, like 3 months and got up to GPT-4
Yeah,
level at the
that's
time.
nuts.
Tesla, SpaceX, he was involved in PayPal. He was involved in starting OpenAI. He was anything you can think of. This was Elon's crazy brain. What I want to talk about today with you is this merging of SpaceX and X, because there are headlines and he can sort of like get, politics aside, everything like that, because I'm not the single biggest fan of Elon of all time. I'll just say that. But this idea of SpaceX and XAI merging is really, really fascinating, because as we're sort of like all eyes have been on Grok and, guardrails being, and I don't know why they don't put more guardrails on Grok. The really interesting thing is this, what sounds futuristic, but Jaden, what you say is not that futuristic, which is what does this do to data centers? What does this do for SpaceX and XAI? What does this do? Can you talk us through some of the things that you've been talking about?
Okay, so the first thing I just want to bring up is the merger. A lot of people talk about the IPO, but I also think the tech is really exciting. What's going to happen? But just for a headline, in case anyone missed it, they both merged together, and it gave SpaceX a $1 trillion valuation, and it gave XAI a $250 billion valuation. So stick them together. There's an IPO coming up in potentially June, although with all the markets crashing, I wonder if it's going to be able to stick to its, we'll see what happens. But all of that happening, it's going to be a massive. It's going to be a massive company. They stuck the two companies together, and the idea, with this merger was that they're going to put data centers in space. So SpaceX will be in charge of, obviously getting the supplies to space, and XAI has been building their own data centers, which is, I think, a really important part of this. With OpenAI and a lot of the other players that were startups, they initially started, they were just outsourcing to Microsoft. Like OpenAI, their data center, they were using Microsoft Azure to power OpenAI and all of their training. Now we have OpenAI doing like Project Starlink, where they're going to have to spend $500 billion with Oracle and with others to go build out all of this infrastructure for themselves, the data centers themselves. But XAI, from the very beginning, like their competitive advantage, they came into a market when they wanted to train Grok, where it was really expensive. It was hard to get any compute. And so they just said, okay, forget that. We're going to get all of the chips from NVIDIA. We'll build our own data centers, and we'll train this ourselves. And so they have a lot of experience with that. And now they're going to try to shoot this into space. And I think the benefits here being, number one, you don't have to use all of this water on Earth to cool the data centers in space. There's no cooling that has to happen in space. And a second one that I've heard people talk about is that as far as powering them goes, solar is a lot more efficient in space outside of the Earth's atmosphere, closer to the sun, So it's just a fascinating concept. It sounds super sci-fi and crazy, but you really could have these, floating data centers around Earth that are kind of self-sustaining. And Elon Musk thinks that this is the only way we can scale the compute to what we actually need, which, if I'm being honest, like I really do grapple with the compute and the electrical problem a lot. I'm like, where the heck are we going to get all this electricity from? Where the heck are we going to get all this compute from? It's so expensive. AI is an amazing technology, but we really are constrained there. This might be the solution, but it also sounds absolutely crazy.
It's it does sound crazy, but this is the thing. Like, I mean, this is where when we think about radical solutions to the environmental problem, right? I mean, like, and we talk about this too. If you're an AI optimist, or if you're an AI pessimist, for example, let's start there. You could say like, hey, this is just killing the environment. Should we really be sort of like making longer prompts? Which that kind of misses the point. But it really does absolutely crush the environment. And as an AI optimist, so this is just like the tack I'm taking, and people can feel free to tear it apart. But because this is a capitalistic venture, this is not just like, oh gosh, we should save more whales or something like that. There are people making literally billions and trillions of dollars. They are going to have to solve this environmental problem because they have finite resources. And what I absolutely love about that is this idea that, when we think, well, how is that going to happen? this is the moment where you're like, hey, we needed a really radical solution. This is it. We're going to put the data centers in space. Now, we can think that's, literally pie in the sky or something like that. Or we can think, the technology seems to make sense. And look, as much as, I my problems with Elon Musk and everything else, this kind of conglomeration of different types of technology is actually kind of really helpful. Like when he first bought Twitter, we're all kind of thinking like, oh, it's just like sort of a vanity project or something. He bought it for like whatever, $40 billion. But now you're sort of seeing how valuable data is, right? And so all of a sudden, Grok, which has access to the world's biggest social network, it's one of the reasons why Grok is so unbelievably good. That is fresh data coming in every single day. And then if you have Grok powering all, sort of SpaceX and everything else, that's where you actually can sort of like see a tremendous amount of technology sort of like leaping forward. And then you throw Starlink in there too. So anyway, so I guess like when we hear things like, oh, SpaceX and XAI are merging, on one hand, it kind of sounds like, oh, this is a market play. This doesn't really impact me, all that kind of stuff. But if you really care about the environment, these are the kind of moves that you actually have to look at and make an opinion for yourself. Do I think that this is going to be impactful or do I not? And if we do think it is, I'm all for it. I don't care if it's Elon or somebody else. Like if they can move data centers into space and it somehow spares our resources and it can continue to grow AI, which I think is going to be critical, especially sort of like as China continues to grow AI. I don't know. I'm kind of all for it.
Yeah, I saw a really interesting interview with Elon Musk talking with Dwarkish, and he's on the Cheeky Pints podcast, so I think it's like one of the Stripe co-founders, and then some others. So one thing that he said on that podcast that was really interesting to me was that a solar panel in space produces 5 times as much electricity as a solar panel on Earth.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, that is really incredible. That is some incredible numbers, right? Like you can imagine, I mean, we should have solar powered rockets at that point. I don't know anything about anything, but that seems phenomenal. Okay, so one thing that I will say is for anyone that doubts whether this is possible or thinks maybe it's too sci-fi, I would just say don't doubt the speed that Elon moves, and that's something that I actually really do appreciate. I feel like if we had heard this as an announcement from, I don't know, like Boeing, for example, they would have said, hey, we have this idea. They would have workshopped it. They would have, I mean, we would be years into the process. They would have tried to get government grants. I don't know, really, right? Like, I'm not trying to throw too much shade at Boeing other than the fact that they possibly assassinate their whistleblowers. But other than that, I think I think that a lot of these big companies are very slow. This is not a very slow company. From the time that they started whispering about a merger with XAI, it happened in like a number of days, which was phenomenal. And then we already literally have a post from Brendan Carr over on X, who is at the FCC. And he said, the FCC welcomes and now seeks comment on SpaceX application for orbital data centers. The proposed system would serve as a first step towards becoming a Kardashian 2 level civilization and serve other purposes, according to the applicant. I just love that, like, I just love like that was put into the application, and that the head of the FCC is retweeting that particular bit of it. But there's a public notice where they're saying, look, I mean, unless anyone's got like got an aversion to this, we're gonna grant SpaceX the ability to put orbit of a constellation of 1 million satellites and data centers basically up in space to compute this. I mean, it's going to be absolutely massive. And I've actually seen Elon, he put out a press release when the merger happened, and it had this really interesting line on there, which said something along the lines of, this is going to be awesome. We're going to be able to put our factory on the moon is going to be able to pump out the data centers, and then we're going to be able to like stick them into orbit. I mean, this is crazy. And then one other thing that's so crazy about it is there was actually a recent regulation that was passed, and I actually think this is probably a good thing. I mean, I'm no space expert again, but there was a recent regulation that was passed that said satellites have to have a plan to deorbit with every 5 years. And that's basically because you put the satellites up there, they get old, they get broken, problems happen. And if you're, I mean, we can't just shoot up 1 trillion satellites eventually, like our whole Earth is going to be, completely swarmed. And so you have to be able to basically get them down in 5 years. Usually they burn up on reentry. But you have to be able to get them down and have a deorbiting plan every 5 years. So what's interesting with the data centers would be, tied into that same regulation. So like Elon got approval to put out 1 million, data center swarm satellite things, but he also has to be able to get them back and fix them up, like get them out of
Mhm.
orbit every 5 years. So this concept of having a factory on the moon that can pump them out, maybe take them back. I mean, it is crazy. It's
It's
absolutely crazy.
Jaden, it's crazy, but like, I mean, I just want everybody to like take a breath, right? Because it sounds crazy. It's like, oh, there's Elon going off. Okay, forget what you think about Elon for a second. Just like if I sort of told you that the guy who helped create OpenAI, who made PayPal, who made Tesla, who blah blah, like the first trillionaire, this guy has credibility. Whatever you think about him, Grok is an unbelievably powerful model. The problem with Grok is not the model. The problem with Grok is the guardrails. So he knows what he's doing. He has incredible teams around him, etc. Here's the point, Jane, that I just want to sort of like take a brief moment here and time capsule this. Because like, you know how you like watch all these old shows and you're like, oh, imagine like when they were first saying like, we're going to build a transcontinental railroad. And you're like, no way. God, I don't know that this isn't that moment. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know that this FCC thing, and I'm not trying to sound sort of like, naive, but that this isn't going to be in a museum where they're like, hey, this is what it looked like. And remember, we were like laughing at putting this thing on the moon or something like that. Like, we're splitting particles, guys. Like, in the particle colliders and things like that in Switzerland. I mean, this thing goes 99.9999% the speed of light. You think that didn't sound like science fiction not too long ago? I just think that this is actually a practical solution to a huge, huge, huge problem, and maybe arguably the most important problem on the planet Earth, which is the existence of our planet. It's an existential threat. Like AI and what it's doing to the climate is existential. I don't think we can doubt that. And I'm a huge AI proponent. I think, Jaden, that we can just take a minute and be like, what if we are witnessing history? So that to me is the most exciting thing. Anything else before I close this out on this?
I mean, I just got to say a last quote from Elon on this. He said, 5 years from now, my prediction is we will launch and be operating every year more AI in space than the cumulative total on Earth. And for context on that, as of 2030, the global data center capacity is like the estimates that we have for it is about 200 gigawatts, which is about $1 trillion worth of infrastructure just on the ground. So he's saying that they're going to have more than $1 trillion in space if we have $1 trillion on the ground, which is absolutely insane. Obviously, this is great for SpaceX. It's a company that makes all of its money from launching rockets into space. And so by having, having an AI company and a great use case, this is going to be phenomenal for SpaceX. Really, it's kind of crazy how much of a win-win these two companies merging could be when, like, if someone, let's say like a month ago was like, hey, do you think it's a good idea for XAI and SpaceX to merge? I'd be like, how could you even merge those two completely unrelated companies? The last thing I will say on all of this as we wrap up the episode is, as everyone knows, X, which is, formerly Twitter, X, they launched a program a while back where they pay creators like, for views on their posts, kind of like YouTube pays creators. And so I've seen a lot of posts recently of people saying now that X got acquired by XAI, which got acquired by SpaceX, they finally are living their dream of being an employee of SpaceX. And as they're getting their like creator payments, and they're finally the astronaut they always wanted to be. So if you want to be an astronaut and work at SpaceX, you too can go post crap on Twitter.
It's tremendous. It's a great way to end. Listen, folks, if you have not, speaking of the future, if you've not tried AIbox.ai, this is Jaden's company. It's $19 a month. And we just talked about this incredible new feature on there with its marketplace where you can build tools. You can actually sort of like market the tools that you're building. You can find other people marketing their tools. It's incredible. My favorite feature is obviously just like comparing different models back and forth. It's because I'd spend a lot of money on, and I do, but you can also make workflows in there. It is so worth checking out. It's really a phenomenal product. I know it's blowing up. Super happy for our guy, Jaden. Go check it out. Otherwise, folks, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode.